Ladies, are you ready for retirement? I mean, are you really ready for retirement? Welcome to the Rebel Tribe, where every day we seek to empower women to see more, do more, and most importantly, be more. And today, those questions will be answered by our guest, Lynnel Bryson-Davis. Lynnel used to be a teacher, and she took that educational experience and expertise, and now she teaches financial planning, and we have her with us today to specifically address some topics that might be of interest to our ladies. So Lynnel, welcome.
Well, thank you. It's nice to see you and everyone out there in TV land, podcast land.
Okay, so I have to ask, the jump from teacher to financial planner, that's a bit of a leap. How did that happen?
Well, I don't, technically, I'm not a financial planner. I function that way sometimes. My technical title is investment advisor representative. And how did I make that leap? Well, when I was still teaching, I was looking for an additional source of income. And my brother-in-law was with the same company that I'm now with, and he offered again and again. And I said, no, 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 because I was just sure I couldn't do this. I was afraid that I would do something wrong and ruin someone's retirement. And once someone from the company finally showed me that there are too many checks and balances within the company that I represent for me to screw up as long as I follow the protocols, I realized that I could totally do this. So I started with a life insurance license, and then I moved on into being able to do mutual funds, and then I started working on managed accounts. And I actually just got my mortgage license, and so that's my latest license. And all of them are designed to help clients. And in my practice, I have a lot of women who are my clients. So it seems like it's an odd move, but in many ways, I'm just educating. I educated as a teacher, and now I educate as an investment advisor. And so that's my job, and that's what I do, and that's what we're going to do tonight.
Wait, so it sounds like, I know that part of what well, let's get right to the fact that, first of all, most women are sadly, I don't want to say uninformed, uninvolved. The women that I know, if they're married, most of them are quite content to let their spouses handle the retirement planning. I'm not sure why that is. I do know some single women that are, taking care of their own retirement and are doing a great job. But I also know some that, again, are sadly not prepared. Why why do women have such a hard time with this?
I honestly don't know that it is just women. I think that when someone who's in the financial services industry sits down with a couple, what frequently happens is and let's just use term husband wife. That may not be the relationship. They may be living together, or it may be same sex, whatever. But let's just use the term husband wife. They're sitting there with this professional, and that professional tends to deal solely with the man. It's not unlike buying a car. Frequently, even today, if we go in and it's myself and my husband, the car salesman, who is almost always male, sits down and starts speaking to my husband. And they get into the nuances of this car, and the horsepower and all of that, which, if it's my car, I don't care. I have other interests and other needs that I want to know about. But that salesman or that financial planner or that financial representative may not be thinking about that. And I don't know if the man is necessarily more knowledgeable than the woman is in the relationship, but they nod and they respond and they're positive about it. And so she feels like she doesn't understand and she doesn't know. And often she couldn't possibly know. But I will tell you this isn't rocket science. The basics, if they're properly taught and simplified, are fairly easy to understand. And there's something that every person, I don't care, male, female, married, unmarried, young, old, they need to have a basic understanding and knowledge of, because if they don't, it's going to hurt them short term and long term.
Now, I know a lot of people are probably asking, why are we solely focusing on women? Well, number one, that's what we're all about. Okay. The rebel tribe is for ladies. Sorry, guys. But why else? Why is it so important for women, especially, to have planned for retirement?
Well, the reality is that if we take an average, on average, a woman is going to spend 15 years plus on her own, either by divorce or by being widowed. I have both widowed friends as well as divorced friends. I have widowed friends as well as divorced, sorry, widowed clients as well as divorced clients. And this is not something that that you're ever prepared for. So years ago, and when my husband and I got married, I was a fully an adult, and there were some things that my mom had taught me that I brought into our marriage. And one of them was that I would maintain certain things, a credit card of my own that is in my name and is on my credit rating, my own credit rating, as well as my own bank account. Now, that is not to say that my husband and I do not have um, credit cards in his name, bank accounts in both of our names. But if something happens, I am safe. So my mom learned this years ago from a friend of hers. She had started a new job. She'd been a stay-at-home mom for decades, and she'd gotten this new job, and she'd met this woman, and they were about the same age. In fact, her youngest daughter and I were in school together. And this lady, let's call her Jan, this lady had been a war bride. I know this is a long time ago, but she was from Great Britain and she was living in Canada, and her husband was Canadian. She had some kids and her husband, and one day he dropped dead. She had no bank account, no credit rating. She had no credit card in her name. She had no credit. And here she is, a widow who doesn't even, because her husband is now dead, at that time, the way that immigration was done is different than it is now. She was entirely dependent on him for her status as far as even living in the country. She was in terrible trouble. And one of the things she said to my mom, and they had become friends fairly quickly, she said to my mom, there's nothing against Ernie, my dad, but you need to have these things, because if something ever happens, you're not protected. You have nothing. They can shut off your gas. They can take your house. Your mortgage needs to be in both your names. All of these things have to be put in place. And so my mom went home, discussed it with my dad, and she started to put these things in place. Now, years later, my mom has now been a widow for 11 years. Before my dad passed, they knew that he was not well, and they made sure that everything, she knew where everything was, that all of the accounts were in both of their names with language, so that whichever one of them died first, it went to the other, to make sure that she was not in a position where she could lose things, her condo, her car, all of those things. And so I learned from my mom that that was something that was really important to do, that it wasn't any negativity against my husband. It was just a matter of reality. If something happens, you need to be protected.
Yeah, I'm here to vouch for that. I wish I'd kind of thought that through the first time around, because not only can being a widow mess you up, but being divorced can really mess you up. So,
Sometimes I think being
yeah.
divorced is worse, because at least if you're a widow, there wasn't that spouse who, because let's face it, divorce is very often acrimonious. And if you don't have things like your own bank account where you can shove an emergency fund, if things go south and everything's in his name, now granted, there are states um, that are where both the people in the marriage have to divide things equally. But if you're not living in one of those states, or even if you are, those things take time. And if it becomes really, really vicious, that person can ruin your life. And it doesn't have to be that way. Um, I first think, maybe some marital counseling might help, but even if that isn't the case, you have to set things up in a way that if something happens, you're protected. And that is, if you have children in the picture, whether it's a blended family or it's kids that you share with that spouse, those kids need to be protected. They need to be protected in a lot of ways, and financially is one of them.
So let's talk about bank accounts, because I heard you mention that, if the bank account's solely in his name, you're in trouble. And yeah, that's true. But what if it's a joint account?
Well, I think joint accounts definitely have their purpose. And remember, banking is not my field. This is just from personal experience and from the experience of some people that I know. But different different couples handle finance differently. And in some cases they put everything together, in other cases they keep absolutely everything separate. I think both of those are really difficult to do. My husband and I each have a personal bank account, and then we have a couple of joint bank accounts. Most of the money is in our joint accounts. But there's a separation there. I have one. It has small credit cards on it that actually I share with our two sons, and helped them to build a line of credit, starting fairly young. My oldest was 15 when we established that particular account. And here's the thing: if my husband dies, I've already talked to because we do credit union. I've talked to our credit union and I said, okay, well, what happens if my husband dies? Well, it becomes your account. That's great. How long does that take? And when I've asked that question, they never really tell you. So what do you do in between? I have personal accounts that I have money in, and I can draw that money if I need it. I have my own credit card, so that if my husband were to die tomorrow, I have a credit card. I can go and get gas. I can go and get groceries. We are solvent until all of those things become set. And so I do life insurance. One of the things with life insurance is that the life insurance policy can't be paid out until there's a death certificate. And sometimes that takes a little bit of time. My company is really good about paying quickly once there's a death certificate, but that money is not immediate. So you need to have money set aside in some kind of an emergency fund in case something happens. It's not unlike, so we lived in California for a long time. They always tell you, in case of an earthquake, you need to have food and water available and on hand for at least 72 hours. You need to have money, enough money for at least a month, and hopefully 2 or 3 months worth of bills until things get settled after death or divorce.
Awesome. I didn't know it was that long. I mean, I knew it would take time, and I have all that. I have my own bank account, I have my own credit cards, I have my own 401k, whatever. But so yeah, but I knew it would take some time, but I didn't think it took 3 months. Good grief. Oh my goodness. So
Well, it just takes time, and sometimes There's nothing that you could have put in place that's going to change that. Investment accounts, they're supposed to go directly to the spouse if it's written, and that's by law in most states. But that just still takes time. That it's not instantaneous. And if it is an account that's actually going to a beneficiary that is not the spouse, it takes even longer.
Okay, so how do they get started getting all of this set up? I know because some of them may not even, depending on their age, may not even really know. I mean, I can remember back when my mom, you couldn't have credit cards. I mean, women were not allowed to have credit in their own name until I forget when, but it's like not as long ago as you would think. Okay. So
Yeah.
some of us, my age or older, may not have been taught any of this. So how do we go about getting started?
Well, I think one of the first things you do is you sit down, as long as things are healthy in a marriage, you sit down and you talk to your spouse and you say, sweetie, if anything happens to you, I'm in trouble. I don't have my own credit rating. I don't have any credit cards in my name. And sometimes they say, oh, you have the credit card and it has your name on it, but that's not a credit card in your name. That is a credit card in your spouse's name, and you are allowed to use it and you are on the account. But for example, my husband and I, he was traveling and I was staying here. And I went to call the credit card company to let them know that he would be traveling and I would be, and they wouldn't talk to me. And this was 2 months ago. It's his card, it's his account. I have a card. They let me pay it. Isn't that nice of them? But I had to have him call to make these travel requests with that particular card. Had we been together, it wouldn't have been a problem, but we were not going to be together. And so he was the one who actually had to call the credit card company and let them know what the travel plans were, because we were going to be in two separate places and I'm not the account holder. And that's now. So these accounts, the credit card companies work really hard to make everything, protect your ID and all of those things, but it can sometimes be a problem. So if it were me, and I'm an immigrant, I know nobody thinks I am, but I'm an immigrant. So when I moved from Canada and I moved to California, I had a Visa card, but it was in Canada. And they didn't count it here in the United States. They said I didn't have any credit. So the first thing I did was, there were stores at the time, Macy's and Robinson May, who would take any Visa card, and if you had one, you could open a store account. You could open a store credit card at these two stores. Now, I don't know if there are stores out there anymore that still do that. My guess is there are. You start by establishing a small credit card. You put some on it, you pay it off immediately. You put some on it, pay it off immediately. You start to get other offers. You're starting to build your own credit rating. You pay those things off immediately. Do not carry balances on them, because they're so high in interest right now. It is just astronomical. But you start to build credit rating that way with small cards. And then you apply for, once you've established a credit rating, you've got 2 or 3 store credit cards, then you apply to Visa, MasterCard, or Discover. My experience with Discover is they are by far the most open to people who have less of a credit history. Now, they've just been bought out, so that may change. I don't know, but right now that's the case. If you are a student in college students get offers all the time. Take advantage of those offers, not a huge number of them, and don't keep balances on the cards, but take advantage of those as you build your credit rating. If you are a college student and you don't need to take out a student loan, take one anyway. Take a small one, pay it back immediately. You don't even have to spend the money, just pay it back immediately. Again, that builds credit. It is not difficult as long as you are here legally. So if you have a green card or you're a citizen, to go into a bank, a credit union, and get and open an account. Frequently, there will be some limitations on the account initially. If you work, have all of your paycheck deposited by direct deposit into the bank account, or have part of it put into the bank account. And that starts to build that bank account. No, obviously you're going to probably, if your household is like mine, we rely on each other's income. And so all of it probably can't stay in that account, but it can initially go into the account, and then you can send it to your joint accounts in any way that you see fit. You can use the bank or credit union that that your spouse and you have a joint account at, if you wish to. If you don't, then go and use a different company. Go use a bank, go use a credit union. There are lots of choices. And go and start to establish that, and do it now. While after you've watched this, go and do it. Go get it taken care of. Go get started. Because if you don't, oh, well, I'll do it next week. I'll do it, oh, I don't want him to be upset with me. I understand that different people have different relationships with their spouses, but it is really, really important to do this. If you don't, and you let it go, and you let it go, and you let it go, sometimes you don't have a choice later on. Suddenly you're in the situation that my mom's friend Jan was in. Another friend, she was actually one of my very first clients. She was a teacher at my husband's school. We're going to call her Kate. And Kate, and she never told me this, but I was pretty sure, and it was confirmed for me later on. Kate had been a Catholic school teacher for years, and then suddenly she started working at the public school. And she then did everything she could to put aside money, because she was trying to establish a legacy for her two sons. She wanted to be able to leave them something when she passed away. So she worked as a public school teacher for 15 years. And just before she retired, I had gotten my licenses, and she took the leap of faith with me and had me start to establish accounts for her. Last year, she passed away. But she was able to leave a lot. I mean, if you think about the short amount of time she had, and you think about the fact that she actually ended up in assisted living and had to start drawing on some of these retirement accounts, she actually left a really reasonable amount of money for both her boys, which was her goal. And she had been divorced. She was a very lovely Catholic lady, and that was so hard for her, because she was she was very much a part of the Catholic Church. And but she was able to set aside money, and she learned all the skills that she needed. She did a great job of putting money aside from her public school teaching job to be able to set aside money for her boys. And she also had a quality retirement. In my opinion, it wasn't nearly long enough, but she got to travel. She and friends went on cruises, which she loved. She'd go to Vegas. She had a wonderful time. And she was able to put that in place in about 15 years. Now, some of your viewers aren't going to have that much time, so they need to start now. They need to start establishing. One thing that a lot of married women don't realize, they say, oh, well, I don't make very much money, or I'm a stay-at-home mom. I don't make any income. If you are legally married and well, in this state, in other states, if you are married in any shape or form, if you've lived together for 7 years, in certain states, that you're considered married. If you file your taxes jointly, you are allowed to establish a Roth IRA or a traditional IRA. I always like Roth, and we'll talk about why in a minute, um, based on your husband's income. If your husband earns income and you are the spouse that stays home and looks after kids or looks after the home, or however you have that worked out, you are allowed to have a IRA, taken from, well, maybe you have a small amount of money, you have a garden and you sell things at the farmer's market and you make some money from that. Um, so you have some money that's in that account that you've now established. You're allowed to actually start an IRA, and it can be entirely based on your husband's income. It's allowed. And for this year, which is 2024, you can put up to $7,000 in a Roth IRA, up to $8,000 if you are over the age of 50. And until tax day of 2024, 2023, which this year is April the 15th, 2024, you could actually put money away for 2023. So why Roth? Well, you've got two choices with IRAs. You can either do a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA. Traditional means that you get a tax break now, but when you take the money out at retirement, you'll pay the tax. A Roth, you pay the tax now, and when you take it out at retirement, it is tax free. So the first account is tax deferred, which is a traditional IRA, and the other is a Roth IRA, which you pay the tax now and it is tax free upon retirement.
Okay, so what's the difference between an IRA and a 401k?
So an IRA is an individual retirement account, and that can be set up by anyone who makes income in the United States. Um, a 401k is established by the company that you work for. And that 401k has some wonderful things that allow people who work for those types of companies to put away even more money for retirement. So in most 401ks, the company has agreed to match up to a certain percentage of what the employee has put into the account. So let's say that the employee makes $500 a week. And so that, let's just round it to $2,000 a month. And the 401k language says that the employer is going to match up to 3% of whatever the employee puts in, and it can only be a maximum of 3% of their income. So that would be $200. No, that would be, sorry, it's late and I'm tired, and my brain does not do math when I am tired. It would instead be $20, but at 3%, it would be $60 per month. If the employee put in $60, then the company is going to put in $60. And so instead of $60, the employee now has $120 in their 401k. The employee, however, can put up to, for 2024, $23,000 into their 401k. Now, the employer is only going to match the first 3% that they put in, but the employee could put up to $23,000 into that account. So if you have money that is available for that, it is a lot more than you can put in a traditional or a Roth IRA.
Okay. So is that, so are these, are, I'm trying to figure out how to word this. Okay, so I know 401ks. Well, I remember my 401k. So my 401k, it was invested for me. So not only was I contributing and my company was contributing, but it was invested in, like, well, I'll be honest, I don't know anything about stocks and bonds and everything. So I picked an account that, looked good for someone my age, and said, do your thing. Okay.
Okay.
Make it grow. And they did a fine job making it grow. So does that happen with everybody's, or was that like just for my company? How does that
No,
work?
no, that's very, very typical. One of the drawbacks of 401ks, when they were established, the federal government, and I think they did this to protect employees, but I think in many cases it hurts employees. Some like myself, I can educate employees about what they should be looking for, but I am not allowed to say, you should get this. You should take this one. This is your best choice. Now, if they're in an IRA and I'm the person putting it in the IRA, I'm allowed to do that with an IRA. I'm allowed, as that person either retires from their job with the 401k or leaves that job with the 401k, I am allowed to then roll that into an IRA and then give them advice as to where is their best choice to put it based on their age and their risk tolerance and how much longer they have before retirement. So the disadvantage for the 401k is that there's not enough advice, and in many cases, not enough information. You know, people think, oh, well, HR will tell me. Well, the problem is HR is not allowed to tell you, even if they were truly knowledgeable about what the 401k does. So there's a few things to look at for your 401k. First, does the company match? Secondly, to what percentage? Third thing, look to see, because some companies, um, they match, but you have to put in twice as much as before they match. So for example, there are some that, although, well, we match up to 4%. Well, they do, except you actually have to put in 8%. So for every 2%, they match you 1%. So you have to read it carefully. And then the last thing you have to look for is a vesting schedule. There are some companies that as soon as you qualify for their 401k, they will allow you to meet the matching. But they will only leave their portion of the money in if you have met the vesting schedule. 4 years is pretty common. And there are some people who had no understanding that that was the case with their 401k. And all of a sudden they look at their 401k and it is dropped by half. And they're like, what the heck happened to my 401k? Well, they never realized that they had a vesting schedule and that the company took back their portion because you did not meet your obligation of the 4 years or the 3 years or whatever. But there are some that as soon as you qualify for the 401k, every time they match, it just stays in your account. So it's important to know what the company does. And those are questions that HR can actually answer.
Okay, I was not aware of that either. Great. Okay, so I get 401ks and IRAs now. What are annuities? Because as we're getting ready to retire ourselves, like retire, we're getting approached by everybody, of course. We're getting all of these, come to the restaurant and let us talk to you about all of our
Yes.
finance. And I see a lot of things about annuities. So what exactly is an annuity and how do they work?
Okay, so annuities are actually life insurance company products. So what we've been talking about before, 401ks, IRAs, are generally investment company products. Not always. Occasionally, you will see an annuity within an IRA or a 401k. But an annuity is a life insurance contract. It is not based on when you die. It is based on, I have put this money aside. The insurance company guarantees that I will have a certain amount of money, a base amount, for the rest of my life, or for 10 years, or for 20 years, depending on the language of the contract. Annuities can be fabulous depending on the annuity, but unfortunately, annuities tend to be, in my opinion, either good or terrible. There's no middle ground on annuities. And there are some annuities that are done really, really well. And they do what the client had wanted and expected. But always know that annuities are expensive. And unless you actually need an annuity, you would be better to do something else with the money rather than an annuity. So this is a life insurance contract. It can be a fixed annuity, a fixed indexed annuity, or a variable annuity. Now, a variable annuity means that the person who sold you the annuity has to have both life insurance license and some kind of an investment license, because the variable means that it is being invested in the stock market in some form. If it is an indexed or fixed indexed annuity, the person that sold you this probably does not have anything other than a life insurance license. That's because it's actually technically not an investment and it's not in the stock market. It's done based on an index. But the problem with them is that if you are every month spending money into an annuity, you are losing a huge amount of the value that you're putting aside and that you think you are investing for your future. The best time to buy an annuity is sometime between a year and maybe 3 years before you plan to retire, because that's when they fit you best. And that's maybe when it's a good time to buy an annuity. Now, if you are a person who is going to have a pension, even if it's not a huge pension, but that will give you at least half the money that you need for retirement, then in all likelihood, you don't need an annuity. And the other problem with an annuity is the what we call in the financial business liquidity. How easily can you get your money? So in a mutual fund is considered liquid. A municipal bond is considered liquid. A money market account is considered liquid. Um, you call them, and within about 2 days, you have your money, and you're not charged a penalty, unless maybe it's in a CD, and then the penalty is very small. An annuity, if it is not outside of what they call the surrender period, and for most insurance companies, that's somewhere between 7 and 15 years. If you have not met the qualifications of the contract you agreed to, they can take your money, and they can take a lot of your money. The problem with annuities is passing them to the spouse. If the person who originally had the annuity, let's say it was from your retirement money, and your annuity and your spouse did not buy a spousal rider for the annuity, you've been used to, let's say the annuity is paying you $2,000 a month, and your spouse dies. Your annuity, if it does not have a spousal rider on it, does not pay you. It just pays you whatever's left in the annuity. And depending on how long you've had that annuity, could be a problem. The spousal rider costs money. The lifetime benefit rider costs money. Lifetime benefit means they're going to pay you even if there's no value left in your annuity. They're going to pay you until you die. So if you have the lifetime rider and you have the spousal rider, both of those are going to cost money with the annuity. But it means that both you and your spouse are protected through both of your lifetimes. And then if anything is left over, it goes to your beneficiaries, kids, grandkids, or whoever you have named. And if there's anything left in the annuity account, you get that. The saddest thing for me with annuities is if the contract is written in such a way that the person who bought the annuity is the only person covered by it, and it is a fairly significant amount of money, and for whatever reason, the way the contract was written, the annuity goes entirely to the insurance company upon the death of the annuitant. And if that is the case, what if they only live 2 months? That insurance company gets all of that money. So if it is written properly, an annuity can be a great choice for retirees, but you have to be careful with them.
So aren't all of these things invested in the stock market though? So, I mean, how stable is that? Because we all know, I mean, especially now they're still talking about recession. I mean, I worry about that. What happens, what happens if the stock market crashes like everybody's worried about, and do we all lose our savings?
So I realize that people are always worried about the volatility of the stock market. And every time there's a really large correction, like 40% down, that is horrible for people because they panic. But let's put it this way. I am not a gambler. My husband is the gambler. He loves blackjack at Vegas. So we go to Vegas, and my husband 74% of the time wins. Am I going to be upset with him? Oh no, no, go honey, go, go. Go play blackjack, enjoy. We win in the stock market 74% of the time. We lose 26% of the time. That is almost 3/4 of the time we win. But we actually always win with the stock market if we are smart about our money. The problem with women, and those of you who are about to be offended, don't be offended. Women, for the most part, are very emotional. We're emotional creatures. We're warm, we're fuzzy. Your money is nothing to be emotional about. You have to be absolutely logical about this. Now, I'll tell you, I do this as a career. And when I'm listening to some of those business stations, there's times when I'm like, because all they do is tell you bad news. Oh, this is down. Oh, this is down. Oh, the sky is falling. The sky is not falling. The sky isn't falling. And actually, every time there's been a market crash in the United States, and there hasn't been one for a while, there's been downturns, but there's not technically been a crash. Every time there's a downturn, the following year, on the following couple of years, the upswing is generally reduces and relieves all of the losses that you got. And if you didn't take it out of the market, then your account value comes back and gains. And we get back to that 74% of the time we win. So let's liken it to going to the amusement park and getting on the roller coaster. You don't get hurt on the roller coaster unless you try to go on the roller coaster or get off the roller coaster in the middle of the ride. If you try to get off in the middle, it's falling, it's going down, get me out. Yes, you're going to have a problem. Now, as people get closer to retirement, we're going to start to take the account values and start to move them out of entirely stocks and maybe into fixed income, which is called bonds, which pay out. What about a dividend strategy? Even if a dividend strategy is when the company pays you dividends every quarter, it doesn't matter what the stock value is, they pay the dividend. You make money. You could maybe even live on that money, depending. Now, guys, understand this is not advice. This is just some of the things that you can do or that your person can do, your financial advisor can do. The idea that the stock market is really dangerous you need to get that out of your head. Do the research. Don't do Wikipedia. Please don't do Wikipedia, and don't even Google it, because Google has some real crazy stuff out there. But go to good quality investment companies. Go to good quality investment sites. Wall Street Journal, Yahoo Finance, Investopedia. These will give you this information. Don't take my word for it. Please don't. Go and find out for yourself. This is not a scary thing, and this is the absolute best place to have your money. Not gold, not silver, not the bank, not in a cash value life insurance that they tell you is going to be there for your retirement. The stock market is where your money needs to be. Now, again, not 100% of it. You need some in the bank. You need an emergency fund. You maybe a little bit of real estate, but on the whole, the stock market is a safe place for your money.
Okay, I heard you talk about life insurance. Don't we need life insurance?
Well, that depends. So when we are young, we have a brand new mortgage, we have little kids. Our spouse and I are entirely reliant on each other's income. If one of us dies, that other person in all likelihood loses everything. They end up living in a one-bedroom apartment with their kids. They're desperately trying to keep food on the table and a roof over the kids' heads because there's no life insurance. A properly written life insurance policy, we, by the way, only do term. And if you listen to some of the big gurus like Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman, I realize that they're not perfect, but they're very consistent. And they'll tell you term policy only because it's in the best interest of the client. Now, I will tell you, I write life insurance policies and I write only term life insurance policies. If I wrote some of those other kinds of policies, I would make way more money on them. So follow the money, figure out to whose advantage it is. And those other kinds of policies that are not term policies are in the best advantage of the person that wrote them and the insurance company whose policy it is, and not the client. So in the best interest of the client, it's a term policy. Your goal is once the kids are grown out of the house is paid for, you don't need life insurance anymore, you're now self-insured. Now, there are some people that don't get to that point, and so maybe they need to carry a small policy for burial and for, sorry, my dog is here causing me distraction.
Usually it's my
So you
dog.
need a policy. Yeah, you need a policy that's going to cover you up until when you don't need a policy anymore. My husband and I actually don't carry a life insurance policy anymore because we consider ourselves self-insured. Our houses are basically paid for. The kids are grown, and if one of us were to die, the other one can go on financially. You know, I can't do anything about the emotion that is caused by the death of a spouse. But my job is to make sure that the family can carry on. And when you get to the point where the kids are grown and there's grandkids, or then you probably don't need a life insurance policy. But again, that is entirely dependent on individuals, and it's always best to talk to somebody who is in the industry.
Oh my goodness, this is a lot of information, and I admit, like I said, I am not the financial whiz of our family. That's my husband has always been way better at it than I am. But I do understand, and I when we go talk to anybody, we go together. So I do understand some of the basics, and even I have learned a few things tonight, but still some of it was like, wow. If I was just getting started, I'd be sitting here with the deer in the headlights look going, what the heck did she just say?
Yeah.
It's a lot of
Okay,
information. So
for those of you who are feeling that way, understand my first when I was teaching, my degree was actually in the social sciences, of which economics is a part. But I had a huge learning curve when I decided to come and do this. I am available to you. Even if you never become my client, I will teach you. I will help you in any way I can with the education that you need to get yourself financially stable and to put in place the things that you're going to need for retirement. And whether that's with a spouse, without a spouse, or only with a spouse for a short amount of time, you need to have quality information, and let Melodian know, and I'm more than happy to help you.
well, they can let you. How do they get a hold of you? I don't want to be the middleman. How do they get a hold of you directly?
Okay, so the easiest way to get a hold of me is I'll give you my Gmail. It's L Bryson Davis, the letter L BRYSONDAVIS @gmail.com, or look for Lynnel Bryson Davis On Facebook. Friend me on Facebook. Let's have a conversation. Um, in person is always my preference, but I would be happy to Zoom with you as well.
And I will put all of that. I will put her email and everything in the description so you can contact her directly to get any kind of assistance that you need. Because I know she covered a lot, and I know some of you are still sitting here. I mean, like I said, even me, I learned a lot, but there's a few things that I'm still sitting here going, go over that again. So I will share that information in the description so you can all follow up with her. And Lynnel, this has been really informative. I'm hoping some of our ladies will start looking at planning for their own retirement.
Mhm.
I can't tell you, believe me, after my first experience where I went to write a check we were both in the military at the time, and I went to write a check at the base commissary and the check bounced, and I'm like, what? So I went to the ATM to, I get the little notification in the mail that the check bounced, and I went to the ATM to get the money out to cover the check, and I was told I had no money in the bank. And I'm like, what the heck? Yeah. So it's a very freeing feeling to know that if anything were to happen, I'm okay. I have my own stuff. I have my own credit. I have my own bank card. I have my own credit card. I have my own retirement accounts. I'm okay. And it's very freeing to know. And that was with my husband's encouragement. He was all about, yes, you need to be ready just in, because you never know. You just never know. So
Yeah.
if you don't have it, you need to go get it, and you will be very much relieved at how much pressure is off of you when you can look down the road and know that I can spend my retirement years, my golden years. They may not be golden, but we can at least make them silver. Okay. They don't have to be crappy. All
Yeah.
righty. So thank you, Lynnell, very much. I appreciate you being here, and hopefully some of our ladies will be in touch.
That sounds great.